You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mama Work It podcast. So glad you're here. I'm your host, Marissa Lonick, and today I am excited to introduce you to our guest, Danielle Bettmann. Danielle is a positive discipline certified parent educator with years of experience as a teacher and home visitor with a degree in early childhood development from birth to age 8. She is also a mom of 2 daughters, wife of 13 years to her high school sweetheart, and the host of the well-loved podcast, Failing Motherhood. Love that name. She empowers parents to crack the code of their strong-willed child's personality, meet their deepest core needs to improve their behavior, and find new levels of patience. Yes, I need more patience. Instead of inadvertently inviting defiance by using traditional tools or playing whack-a-mole with short-sighted reactions, families get on the same page and learn how to cultivate cooperation while being kind and firm at the same time. Danielle, I am just like on the edge of my seat here, ready to learn more about what you teach parents because I feel like I can always use tips when it comes to being a better parent here. So hardest job ever. I know you know.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to dive into this topic.
Yes, me too. I could talk about it all day. That's why we're here. We all need tips. Believe me, experts included.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I love to ask first, tell us more just about you and how you got started on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's do the quick version. Back when, you're supposed to have life figured out at 18. And all I knew was I wanted
Who said that?
Right? All I knew is that I liked working with kids. And so I went into teaching. So my degree is birth through grade 3 education with a special ed and early education built in. And that was kind of unique to the college I went to in Nebraska. And graduated and started working in classrooms as a lead teacher and then in Head Start and early Head Start. And it was great. And I quickly realized that what happens in a classroom is fantastic, but what happens at home is what's really mattering most. So I moved into home visiting with a program called Early Steps to School Success through Save the Children. And I get to work with families for an hour in their homes every single week, connecting parents with resources and just developmental screenings and books to read. And they just welcome me in as one of their family. And then I had my 2 girls myself. So they are 15 months apart, which I don't professionally recommend. It's arguably too close. But I wanted to go back and apologize to like every parent I'd worked with because textbooks are one thing, but parenting is just something that you cannot be prepared for. And that's when I really realized, because my daughters were so different, even though they were so close in age, that there's a lot more to this than just understanding brain development. And especially with my second daughter, she was so strong-willed right off the bat, so big emotions, high highs, low lows, no in between, just sent us for a loop. And when I started figuring out what worked for her, I was just sharing that with other friends, and I started leading a mom's group at that time. I was working kind of part-time at an in-home daycare, and it was just I love being able to kind of fill in the gaps and, give people advice. It's a lot easier to tell you what to do than to tell me what to do. And so eventually I started my business 4 years ago now, and it was just in-home consultations. Hey, let's talk about what's going on at your home and figure out what you need. I was doing some decluttering and, some other things like that. And then the pandemic hit. And so I became best friends with Zoom, moved everything online, and created kind of a coaching package one-on-one with families. And then that moved into a group program, and I started my podcast, Failing Motherhood. And that came from an extensive anonymous survey asking parents kind of what keeps you up at night. And the biggest message was, I feel like I'm screwing this up. I feel like I have ruined them because of my temper. And also, I'm the only one. And so I was like, we need to talk about this more. Let's normalize this feeling of feeling like we're failing and be able to find so much more camaraderie and just take the shame and the guilt and all of that fear off of it and find some solutions and seek some help, and it's okay. So that's what we do over at Failing Motherhood, and we're on our 95th episode or so now. And my group program is called Wholeheartedly Calm, and it is for parents of strong-willed kids age 1 to 7 who really want to work on the core pillars of more composure, managing their composure and their patience as a parent, better communication, so that they truly feel like they are as equipped to navigate things as a hostage negotiator, because you're negotiating for your life sometimes with a strong-willed kid, and your core needs. So your strong-willed child, building up their sense of control and connection in ways that really eliminate a lot of the behaviors that we don't like. And so doing that within a safe community to be real and feel supported is what we do over here at Wholeheartedly. So I think that's the whole recap.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. When you're, say, strong-willed kid,
Yes.
strong-willed child, I feel like everybody listening is probably raising their hand like, yeah, I have one of those, right? I mean, but how do you actually know if you're a parent of a strong-willed child?
Yes. And it can be one of those things where it's like, if you know, you know, right? Like if you're questioning it, you probably are. But there is more to it, because every kid was distinctly different, and every family needs unique perspectives, and no one size fits all formula to get outcomes for your family. But you're a parent of a strong-willed child if you really, really, really want to do well for your child, and you're seeking out resources like this, and it means a whole lot to you how you show up, and you want to give them your best, and you don't really know what to do because you weren't given that framework or toolkit from maybe the way that you were parented, or you're trying to make it up as you go. So you're overriding instincts and then trying to unlearn while you learn and you teach at the same time. And meanwhile, you are maybe figuring out gentle parenting, and your child is not gentle childing. They are just throwing out no's in your face. They are not afraid to make you mad. They are really, really have a strong sense of self. They know what they want. And when what they want doesn't happen, they lose their minds. And they can't handle that gap between, what they expected and the reality. And they are always looking for more ways to feel like they have attention, or they're having more control of their environment or their siblings or you. And so there's power struggles everywhere about, getting in the car seat, getting your shoes on, eating the food, you name it. It's a struggle, and it's harder than it needs to be. But they can also be so loving, so sweet, funnest kids to be around, so smart, perceptive, observant, just a joy. And you just want to see more of those moments rather than the bad outweighing the good. And they seem to bring out the worst in you, is what it feels like. And I call parents of strong-willed kids worrying warriors, because they are anxious and they are defeated because they care and they're trying. And so if that sounds like you're likely the parent of a strong-willed child.
Yes. So, raising my hand. Sounds like me.
We'll now start the meeting for all the parents. Yeah.
I'm in the right place.
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the misconceptions parents believe about parenting strong-willed kids?
Yes. So because traditional parenting tactics, you start to realize they don't work, you're lost. You just have nothing then. You're like a blank slate. You have no idea what to do instead of the yelling or the punishments that you were given as a child, or you just keep trying and the timeouts just never do anything. It's just a charade of shenanigans. And so there's some big fundamental shifts that are key to being able to understand how different the approach needs to be when you are working with your strong-willed child, because you want to work with the way that they're wired rather than against it. You don't want to crush their spirit. You don't want to rely on threats and bribes and all this external factors, because for the most part, they don't care. You could bribe them with Disney World, or you could threaten them with taking all their toys away. Ultimately, it's probably not going to change their mind in that moment. They'll scream and cry about, how they don't want you to, but ultimately it's not going to change tomorrow. So what you need to understand first is that the thought becomes, I just need to find the right consequence. I just need to figure out their currency or what they're motivated by. And then if I do, that'll be the golden ticket, because then I'll, use that as leverage, or I'll use that as a carrot, and, I'll be able to have a lot more control. And ultimately, punishments and rewards just don't work. Like, make peace with it, accept it, surrender. You're not going to figure out that like magic formula. It just doesn't exist, because they are so internally driven, which is fantastic. We love that about them. We want that to keep them, because that's a huge advantage later on. They're not going to be influenced by peer pressure, right? They're just going to do what they think is fair and right and just. And that's what they're doing now as 3 and 4-year-olds, with very little emotional intelligence and impulse control. So we want to keep that within them, and we want to work with that. So what we have to realize is that there's other ways to get their cooperation that don't just use tools or carrots to try to form them from the outside, and instead basically create a dynamic where they see the what's in it for me factor, or where allowing them a lot more dignity and choice within the matter, so that they see the value and kind of become with us. Like, collaborative problem solving is a big tool that positive discipline teaches, where you basically just say, hey, I love that you want to do that, and here's the problem with that. What are we going to do? And basically get them to use a lot more critical thinking and problem solving to work around it in a way that might be plan C, but C is great. We'd rather that than, the world's most epic meltdown. So that's one big misconception. Another one is that it's just going to get easier or better, because most families that come to me have not been struggling for a day. They've been struggling for years, right? And that has been because first it was the terrible 2s. Okay, sure, I get it. Then it's the terrible 3s. Yep, okay, I heard that 3s were going to be worse than 2. That's fine. And then it's the 4s. And it's like, I thought maybe we wouldn't have meltdowns like this at this age, but, I'll trust the process. Then it's 5s and 6s. And all of a sudden, when they're going to school, all the behavior just becomes so much more concentrated at home. And ultimately, it's not improving, because this is the way that they are. This is not like a phase. And if you don't have the tools to be able to manage this well, it's just going to continue to deteriorate your relationship, or become bad habits that are a lot harder to break as they get older. So parents think that they just need to be consistent with what they're doing, and, give it a year, give it some time, it'll be fine. And that can be a really short-sighted way to kind of kick yourself in the foot, because then you're still just trying to solve these problems when they're a lot bigger and harder later. So that's another one. And then really thinking my child needs help. So a lot of families will seek out maybe a sensory swing, maybe a child therapist, maybe OT, maybe some other things that are very child focused. And because they see the gap, they see that they struggle with big emotions, they aren't able to regulate, and they have a lot of maybe fits of rage. So let's get them fixed. But the shift needs to be, well, actually, you as the parent are the one that is most influential in this relationship dynamic. And when you get support and more insight and tools, then it's going to just ripple effect and overflow to your child, having a lot more ability to thrive and learn and grow themselves in the way that they were going to anyway. But now they have the space and the environment to do that well in, as opposed to that's usually not part of the plan. It's not comprehensive enough. It's not holistic enough if it's just working with them. And usually it's still within the realm of developmentally appropriate behavior. So there isn't a whole lot you can do about it, other than changing the way that parenting feels to you and your confidence, which is everything that, we do in my program.
Yeah. Ooh, so much good stuff there, Danielle. All right, hold on. I want to dive into some of it. So
Yeah.
I'm in full agreement. I think the way you show up as a parent affects, can affect kids' behavior, right? So like if you're stressed, feeling like really overwhelmed with all the things you're juggling. And then you're bringing that vibe, that energy into the room when, you really just want to be fully present with your kid. They're going to pick up on that, right? They're going to
Oh,
pick up on that
100%.
energy and that stress and all of that. So big, big proponent of like taking care of yourself and really showing up as your best self in motherhood, in life in general.
Yes.
You mentioned something else about not the phases. What did you say before the phases? About
Being,
the intrinsic rewards. Can we talk
yeah.
a little bit more about that? Because I'm a fan. I agree. I
Yeah.
love intrinsic rewards. I think this is just human development. Like even as you get older, right, you realize intrinsic rewards are way more powerful than extrinsic
Mm-hmm.
ones. What are
Mm-hmm.
some like simple ways that someone who's hearing this maybe for the first time or is intrigued by this concept could implement this, could start implementing this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all have that internal drive of just wanting to feel seen, understood, heard, belong, loved, fulfilled. All those things are a part of the human experience for sure. And, we tend to almost look at children like they're not fully human sometimes because surely they don't have bad days or feel the same way, or we can't extend to them the same credit that we give ourselves every day. But that is so true. And especially with strong-willed kids, because nothing else works. You really do have to wrap your mind around this and understand it. And you're really just seeing the same things that you enjoy is probably what they enjoy starts to kind of unlock that framework. It's really not rocket science, but it's just definitely zooming out a whole lot more and taking on a different pair of lenses. But for strong-willed kids, they really want to feel understood, sometimes more than getting what they wanted. So if, the things they want are irrational. So it's very hard to commiserate and say, like, of course you're behaving like this because I would behave like this. No, I wouldn't be losing my mind wanting, ice cream for dinner instead of meatloaf. But being able to just say for them what they're trying to say and not immediately discredit them or, bring in all the logic and reasoning of why they can't and, shut it down and try to change their behavior immediately, but just holding space to say, yeah, I get it. Ice cream tastes really good. I hear you. That then kind of unlocks the conversation where they're a lot easier to get through to when you follow that up with, and we are having meatloaf. Okay, so like, would you like to help me set the table, or would you rather go, get your brother, or something that just allows for them to have that need met of understanding is huge. And we miss that all the time because we miss that in our marriages. We miss that with, our friends because we're just still in our own brain of getting our agenda out there. And if we just stop for a second and agree with them, even though it seems counterintuitive, because then of course, surely they'll want ice cream for dinner every night. And, we can't let that happen. No, you're still not budging on your boundary whatsoever. It's not negotiable, but it can coexist. Those two things are possible. It's possible for them to love ice cream and for you to continue to have meatloaf for dinner. And that's okay. Those things are not mutually exclusive. So being able to give that gift of understanding at any opportunity that you can really just allows your child to feel like, okay, finally, I don't have to keep beating this drum and fighting this battle and sending this message that never gets heard. And instead, I can finally relax because ultimately, if I don't feel like you're getting what I'm saying, I feel like I have no choice but to escalate. Because clearly, if it's not working like this, then, I'll get louder, I'll use my behavior. This isn't a conscious thought they're having. This is just, subconsciously what they're thinking. And so we inadvertently invite that defiance by just shutting it down. And if we just hold space for it and agree and say, I get it, then they're like, okay, well, at least you have my back. At least I got to get that off my chest. Still not thrilled about the meatloaf, but I can move on instead of being stuck on that gear for the next 30, 40 minutes and hold that resentment against you for the rest of the night. And, I also feel like a terrible parent too, because I escalated and yelled and I don't like when I do that either. So it's a win-win when that intrinsic motivation of being understood is met at lots of opportunities.
Yeah. I love it because it is essentially a really simple thing to do. It's not easy to
No,
implement
not easy.
because there are so many other factors, right? There's not only
Yes.
your own internal emotion of frustration and stress and patience and all of those things, but then there's other kids maybe you're taking care of as well,
Yep.
or there's a schedule you need to adhere to, or there's meatloaf burning in the oven, or there's,
Exactly.
a
You're
hundred other
overstimulated. You're
things.
running late. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So, how can you sort of bring it back to the fact that it is a really simple and not very time consuming approach, right? I mean, I'd imagine you get down on the ground if your kid's tantruming down there, make the eye contact, you say a couple phrases that help them feel seen and understood, and you get back to it. How can you actually, though, execute it when you have all these million things going on?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is the battle, right? Because you are a pressure cooker just as much as they are. And, that thing's going to burst with the last straw when you have no capacity to give. And I always say that sanity comes before strategies, which means you could hear the world's best advice on this podcast, but if you didn't sleep at all last night and, you feel like your marriage is on the brink and payday's not for 3 more days and all these other things are absolutely zapping your ability to have any capacity to give your child what they need today, then you're not going to be, those strategies aren't going to be accessible. Your brain is not even going to be in a place of remembering that and consciously being able to do that. So just realizing that and giving yourself that grace of okay, when I am having a great day, I'll be able to remember to do that. And the more that I do it in low stress moments, I'll be able to build up to being able to do it on the higher stress moments. Because usually we learn a parenting strategy and then want to apply it to the world's worst moment, the most urgent, biggest pain point ever. And that's learning how to ride a bike on the top of a mountain. Maybe let's try the sidewalk first.
Yes. Yes, that's such a good analogy. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we have to apply
So doing it when you're
yeah.
fully rested, just listen to the podcast, have a minor inconvenience and your child's oh, this hurt my finger so much. And that's when you can just be all right, I'll start here. Yeah, that really hurt. Oh, I don't like when that happens to me. Right? Just start there and build up.
Yeah. So true. And such good advice. Absolutely. So let's break down all the ways, because you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, but even just being a working mom in general, right? Juggling a business or a career. Let's break down all the ways parenting is so similar to running a business or being a high performing, high achieving, successful career woman.
Yes. Oh my gosh. How much time do we have?
Just go. I'll stop you if we have to stop.
No, it is absolutely bizarre how similar they are. And, every other parent that's an entrepreneur knows, but it's number one, you don't know what you're getting into when you sign up for it. You have no idea. There's just no ability to kind of understand what it can possibly look like and what it will all entail until you're in it. And then it's too late to get out. You have the highest highs and the lowest lows, and it's a constant roller coaster. It's both of them are so unpredictable and yet have those rewarding moments that are just like a lottery reinforcement that just are just enough to keep you going through the hard days and the bad days. And they both require so much growth that you didn't even know there was things you had to work on. As a parent, you have no idea you had a temper. You have no idea that these things, moments from your childhood would resurface and you'd be saying the exact thing your parents said, 25 years ago. And you have no idea that there's all these other things playing into your role as a parent that it should seem so compartmentalized. And same with your business. There's constantly things that are coming up for you, whether it's money mindset or it's, this type of understanding, or it's this new marketing skill, or it's, all these other things that are coming up and you're I did not know that would be a thing or a skill I would need or a thing I would have a problem with or something I have to unlearn. And it's constant and it feels defeating at times because just when you think you get ahead, there's a new curveball. Just when you think you're hitting a stride, there's no plateau. You just keep going. It's a marathon. Both of them are a marathon. And it's crazy because why would you do both of those things? But here we are.
But here we are. Yes. Oh my gosh, so many good similarities. And if I can add one thing that you touched upon, but I feel like has been the most apparent for me is like all the healing we have to experience on these journeys, right? Like you said
Yes.
unlearning, that made me think of the healing, like all like the things, oh, well, I actually didn't realize I had this mindset and I have to adjust it, or I didn't think about the fact that that's probably not the best way to really, handle that type of situation, or like, I really am, impatient when it comes to I don't know, whatever it is, like you learn a lot about who you are, and then you learn a lot about what you need to fix and improve about yourself. And so you need to be humble.
Oh,
you need
yes.
to be humble.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am working with like a subconscious reprogramming coach right now. And like every session, it all comes back to, you need to love yourself more. I'm like, well, I didn't even know I didn't love myself. I thought I did. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
I know. I've done a lot of subconscious work, and like things that have stood out is like, the internal voice you have, right? That's always talking to yourself, right? And like, when you think about that, you're like, I would never talk to someone else that way, ever. But yet here I am talking to me, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's
no wonder.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so hard.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, on that note, and in an effort to keep this podcast on time, let's move on over to our lightning round now, where I'm just going to ask you some random, just for fun type questions, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more personally. Are you ready?
Sounds good. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, good. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Love is Blind.
Me too. Yes.
It's a dumpster fire and I can't look away.
Oh my God. It is so good. It is so good and addicting. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Okay. What's one app you can't live without?
Oof. Google Photos, probably. It's my daughter's 10th birthday. And so we were looking at pictures from like scrolling all the way back.
Aww.
And I'm so grateful that I have this cloud where it's like, I can constantly look up anything from the past, and we didn't have that technology even like 7 years ago. So it's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Serious question. Nail salon, hair salon, or spa. You can only pick one to visit for the rest of your life. Which one is it?
I would have to say hair salon. I'm big into coloring my hair, and I go in lots of spurts from like red to blonde and back again. And I don't feel like it stays in a good state if I'm not back there. I'm doing my own nails like gel wise from home. I got an Amazon set, so I can handle that on my own, but hair, no way.
Yeah. I wouldn't try and color my own hair. I agree.
No.
Yeah. That's an expert's job for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. What book are you reading right now?
I'm actually reading the third Harry Potter as like my fiction book because my daughters are at an age, they're 9 and 8, where they're reading them too. So as soon as we all finish one book, then we get to watch the movie. So we watched the movie for the second book last week, and so I'm working on book 3 because they're ahead of me. But I'm trying to keep up so that I've never read Harry Potter up until now. I don't know how I like was not on the first train 20 years ago when I left the station. But
I love
circling
that you
back.
said this. I love that you said this because I feel like we have so much in common, because I do this with my twins. They're 9. We read the Harry Potters together, and then we watch the movie together. That's like our thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I never read them when they were popular, like when they were coming out. I was reading like He's Just Not That Into You or something like that. Like that was, Harry Potter was not my genre in my early 20s or whenever that was.
Yeah. It was Nicholas Sparks era for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, now is our time to read Harry Potter. And they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
They are pretty good. Yeah. Genuinely. I mean, yeah, there's a reason why it's such a big empire, I guess.
Yeah, I will tell you, when you get to the 5th book, brace yourself. It took us basically a year to read the 5th book here because it's like 800 and something pages. And I read it out loud. Bigger. I read it out loud to them. And we were not consistent. I mean, if we were consistent, we would have read it more quickly. But like, it took us a long time to read that one.
Okay. I will gauge my expectations accordingly.
Yes. All right. Last question. What's something most people don't know about you?
I had like reconstructive nose surgery in high school. Not electively by choice, but I was coaching gymnastics. I was a gymnast my whole childhood, basically, and then I moved into competitive cheerleading. So I was coaching little girls' gymnastics classes in high school, and a little girl kicked up into a handstand, and her heel just knocked my nose about clear off my face, and I had to get it put all back straight again. And I had a nose cast for a week in high school. That's not what the cool kids do. In case you don't know.
Don't recommend.
At least it was kind of like skin colored, but it like had to stay and it got really sweaty. It was, yeah. So that's just a little, now you know.
Now we know. Now we know. I was a cheerleader too. I am learning so much about you. All right, Danielle, before we wrap up, please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Of course. Yeah. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, you can find Failing Motherhood in the same place and go follow us there. We have experts that will talk about how they feel like they resonate with that feeling of failing and share from their perspective. So if that's something you need or you need more advice for handling your strong-willed child, it's every other week is either a interview or solo advice from me. So go find that there and subscribe. And then most active on Instagram. I'm at parent_wholeheartedly. And you can say hi and say how you found me there. And then my website is parentingwholeheartedly.com. I have a 1-hour free training. It's at the front of the website, and that's the best way to kind of get a full-on download. If you're like, I want to parent my strong-willed child with more tools and more patience, that's the best place to go. It's called Authentic and Unapologetic as a Parent, and you can go just watch that on demand anytime.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll have all those links in today's show notes. So Danielle, thank you so much for being here and sharing all this incredible wisdom. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.